Thanks very much, Graham. Now, as the nation still reels from the tragic passing of Springbok legend Joost van der Westhuizen yesterday morning, we're joined this morning by our resident Doctor Darren Green to get a better understanding of this motor neuron disease, or ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease, as it's sometimes called, the progressive and incurable disease that eventually claimed his life. And it's good to have you here, sir.
Thank you so much.
To get a better understanding of this disease and exactly how does it work, what are the symptoms of ALS, or motor neuron disease?
Sure. So the simple term is motor neuron disease, and there's subtypes. There are about 4 or 5 different subtypes that you get, and depending, for example, on which motor neurons are affected first, you get the different subtypes. Some affect the hands,
yes,
obviously, and the distal parts more. Others affect your muscles of talking and speaking a lot more, and others obviously can be quite global. The progression of them differ, obviously, so you can have bulbous symptoms with difficulty swallowing, weakness of the hands, etc. But it's basically progressive weakness over a period of time, and it's a neurodegenerative disease. So the anterior horn cells in the spinal cord are predominantly affected, and that means that the signal that comes from the brain, the upper motor neuron, down the spinal cord and then connects with the muscles to tell them how to contract and when to contract, that's disturbed.
Yes.
It's a neurodegenerative disease, which means they basically just die off. Those connections die off. And the problem is obviously that we don't know the cause as to why they die off, and that's what makes treatment so difficult.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so tough to watch someone suffer with progressive weakness over time and not be able to actively intervene.
And so when you say the word neuro, and this is all in gaining a better understanding, when you say neuro, you're thinking the brain. How does MND, ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease affect a person's cognitive abilities, the ability of their mind?
For sure. So besides getting the diagnosis, as you get any kind of bad news with any diagnosis, whether it be a life-threatening cancer or, in this case, obviously understanding the impact and having the psychological impact of that, long-term in terms of cognition and so forth, the disease itself can affect your brain in terms of your cognitions. Only about 5% of cases can develop a specific type of dementia called frontotemporal dementia. But in Joost's case, fortunately, that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
He had a completely normally functioning brain, and cognitions were still very much intact.
Absolutely. And, you know, when you think about Joost, you think about the heroics on the rugby field, the sportsman that he was, the competitive nature of his game. And you look at him as living a healthy lifestyle. So then it brings the question, then, who is at risk?
Correct.
Do you contract ALS? Or
you can't. You can't get it. It's not your parents' fault. There isn't a genetic gene that's been described that shows that it's inherited genetically. Generally, we know the patterns of the disease from studying all the cases that are known normally occur after the age of 40, between the ages of 40 and 70. Obviously, the prognosis, depending on which subtype you have, can be quite dismal, ranging from 6 months to 5 to 6 years, depending on which one you have. And obviously the biggest part that's tough is you become very dependent on others to help you eventually support your posture, but also just eating and drinking and all that. So you really go through a tough time of losing function over a period of time.
Yeah, and you corrected me earlier on when we were talking about Stephen Hawking that he does not have ALS or MND.
No, it's a different condition.
All right, well, thank you very, very much for helping us understand this. And Dr. Darren Green is going to be staying with us, and we are opening up our lines on this Tuesday, 083-9133-728, where today we'll be discussing the aspects and the different aspects of understanding aging, something that we cannot avoid, just like taxes. Stay tuned to your Feel Good Breakfast Show. We'll be right back.